People who have watched my channel for a while have heard me talk about all of the horror stories from condos, especially with how much it costs these days just for the HOA fees, as well as the special assessments that people are being hit with. And in Florida, the situation seems to be worse there more than anywhere else. And I have been voluntarily part of this scam for the past few years now, ever since I've owned my condo in Miami Beach. And I can tell you guys, it's getting nothing but worse, okay? Because the expenses continue to climb and the quality of life just continues to go down. However, like I've explained before on the channel, between my wife and I discussing this over and over again, we've still decided that the quality of life is higher and the benefits are higher than the negatives. How much longer that's going to last, I don't know. But I can tell you this, one thing that was recently found out in a report from Condo Vultures based in Miami is that Miami condo owners, pretty much everybody in Miami-Dade County, pays on average 13% more in condo association dues each year than our neighbors to the north of us in Fort Lauderdale or Palm Beach. And the situation is even worse when you compare it to what condo owners in Tampa, for example, are paying. Miami has the highest condo maintenance fees in Florida, averaging about $1.15 per square foot per month. This is 13% higher than Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach, which averages about $1.02 per square foot. And get this, it is 33% higher than the Tampa and Saint Petersburg area at only 86 cents per square foot. And this data comes from the Benchmark 2025 High-Rise Edition by First Service Residential that was just published at the end of September. So this data is not even a month old. This is fresh off the press. And this is the breakdown of how the typical monthly budget goes for a condo association in Miami. 41% of it goes towards operations, 20% goes towards insurance, 12% of it goes towards the master association assessments, 12% towards reserves, 9% on utilities, and 6% on administration. So a typical one bedroom of about 750 square feet costs you about $863 a month in HOA fees each month, guys. Like, that is just unbelievable. I remember when I first started selling real estate back in 2009, a one bedroom like that usually wouldn't cost you more than $400 or $500 a month tops, depending on the building, depending on how many amenities they had. But that was pretty typical. And now, as you can see, that cost has nearly doubled over the past 18 years or so. A 1,000 square foot two bedroom in Miami, which is not even that big for a two bedroom, would cost you around $1,150 per month. And today I'm walking in Mill Valley, very close to Sycamore Park and Sycamore Avenue. Now, part of the problem is when we had the condo collapse in Miami back in 2021, that kind of changed everything. You know, prior to then, the HOA fees were still reasonable in most cases, but after that happened, it spurred a whole new set of laws and requirements that condos have to adhere to, and some of the regulations have been kind of kicked down the road a little bit when it comes to full reserve funding and the requirements that condos have to meet, but it is a lot stricter than it used to be. A lot of condo associations in the past could get away with waiving their reserves and kind of delaying important structural repairs because nothing like this had ever happened before. And so it was easy to get away with. You know, it's easy to kick the can down the road if there's no severe consequences. You know, prior to this, we never saw a building fall down in Florida. But my question is, why are Miami condo owners being ripped off like this? Why is it so much more expensive in Miami than it is in other regions of Florida? I mean, especially South Florida. You know, Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach is just to the north. It's not that much further away. It's basically the same region of the country, has the same susceptibility when it comes to sea level rise and hurricanes and different things like that. I can tell you one thing for sure, insurance costs are one of the largest line items in our budget for our condo. But as a longtime Miami resident, I kind of just attribute this to a couple of different things. First of all, I think a lot of it is fraud and corruption. Okay, there's a lot of condo associations in Miami that are run like basically a Cuban mafia. Let's put it like that. You know, the same people have been in charge for decades. They keep making poor decisions that kind of enrich themselves and their businesses. For example, they can hire their own contracting company, or they can hire their brother as a contractor for different things that need to happen in the building and massively overcharge the condo association for the bill and pocket the difference, guys. This is something that all governments do, and local condo and HOA associations are no different. They do it too. And without anybody there to push back, because a lot of people don't want to be on the board, they don't want to go to the meetings and things like that, which I don't blame them because it really does suck. They're able to get away with it. You know, so you have that aspect to it. That's one thing. Also, Miami, everything's more expensive, guys. The insurance is more expensive. Utility costs are more expensive. You have to pay more because the cost of living is higher than in Fort Lauderdale and in Palm Beach. And so when you combine the higher operating expenses with corruption and fraud, those are the two reasons why people in Miami are being ripped off and paying the most. And I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention because not only am I subject to this, like I said, I'm voluntarily a part of this scam because I am still living in a condo and still own a condo there. But I will say that our condo is probably run better than 90% of the condos in Miami. I have seen how they do things at other places. So as bad as it is, it could be a lot worse. And it's probably one of the only things that keeps us where we're at because we know how much worse it could be. But I want to put this out there as a warning because a lot of people still look at Miami as the greatest place to buy real estate and invest and do all this stuff. And there's really nowhere safe to turn. You buy one of these condos, you could be getting yourself into a huge money pit with special assessments and be subject to the corruption and fraud and extremely high special assessments and HOA dues. And if you want to go the alternate route and you want to buy a house over there instead, well, have fun with your insurance quote because it is going to be astronomical and completely unaffordable in many cases. In fact, your yearly insurance quote buying a house in Miami could easily be more than your yearly property tax bill, which is also going to be the highest in Florida as well, because Miami-Dade County has the highest property taxes throughout all of Florida. So I'm not telling people not to buy there because I live there too, and there's a lot of great things about living in Miami. I just want to give people a heads up and a warning that this is what you could be facing if you decide to buy a condo or a house down there. And as somebody who's lived there for 18 years, I don't see any of this stuff improving. All these problems I just talked about are just getting worse, and the expenses continue to go up. They're not going down. We've all gotten those spam phone calls and text messages from companies that we've never heard of, and we have no idea how they got our information. And that's why today's video is sponsored by Delete Me. Delete Me is a hands-free subscription service that will remove your personal information that's being sold online. And Delete Me's privacy experts remove you from hundreds of data brokers all year long. They can collect things like your name, your age, your address, your photos, your email address, where you work. And one of my own personal favorite features of Delete Me is the custom removal request. Sometimes I find out that a website has my information that I never gave it to, and I'll submit it to Delete Me, and a lot of times they can get that removed on my behalf. All I have to do is fill out a simple form. No other work on my part needed. So make sure to get 20% off your Delete Me subscription today by joining using the link down below at joindeleteme.com/boardandarrow or use the QR code on the screen. Now, something that was sent to me by one of my viewers is talking about how mortgage payments have nearly doubled in the past decade. So the cost of living and the cost of housing is not just a Miami or South Florida problem. It is a problem nationwide, but it is just amplified down there for sure. But take this for example. If you bought a home for $330,000 with a down payment of 10% down and a 30-year mortgage in September, and your mortgage rate was 6.26%, so those rates are reserved for only the highest qualified borrower, your mortgage payment would be $1,830 per month. But if you compare that to 10 years ago, that same house would have cost you only $1,400 a month, and your interest rate would have been around 3.9% in September of 2015. And I know that's not quite double, but we're getting to that. On average, the monthly cost of owning a home in counties across the United States was $1,424 in 2025, compared to only $712 in 2015. And that number does not include the cost of property taxes, homeowners insurance, homeowners association fees, or any other costs related to homeownership. That is just your principal and interest payment. And so when you factor all that stuff in, the cost of homeownership and your monthly payments have actually more than doubled. Just the mortgage payments alone have doubled. But all those other expenses have gone up exponentially since then. In the top 5 counties where they have experienced monthly housing costs rising by more than 180%, Canyon County over there saw the largest increase, with monthly mortgage costs rising to $2,381 a month in 2025 compared to only $840 a month back in 2015. I mean, that is just astounding when you think about it. Now, while in Idaho they experienced the largest percentage of increases, more than any other state, still the highest and most expensive housing costs throughout the country remain in California, Wyoming, and Massachusetts. Nantucket County in Massachusetts saw their monthly cost of owning a home more than double, reaching $9,797 in 2025 compared to $4,691 in 2015. I mean, even 10 years ago, it was ungodly expensive. Now you're looking at 10 grand to be able to own a house. I mean, that is just unbelievable, guys. But the median listing price of a home there is $5.2 million. So when you look at it like that, it's not that big of a surprise. In fact, it's surprising that the monthly cost is not even higher, because if you were to buy any house anywhere for $5.2 million, you're going to be paying a whole lot more than $9,700 a month. So this brings us to a situation right now where the typical household earning $69,000 a year would need to spend about 36% of their monthly income to afford the monthly mortgage payment for the median priced home. But that's not really a real reflection of what's going on, because first of all, according to the BLS data, most households earn about $80,000 a year. So it's a little bit more. But the part that they're missing here is they're saying 36% of your income is going just towards the principal and interest, not towards the entire shebang. You still have your property taxes, your insurance, and all the upkeep costs on the house. So if you're spending 36% of your income just on your principal and interest payments, you're probably spending over 50% of your income just to be able to own and maintain the house, which is completely unsustainable, guys. And that's why you see more home sellers than buyers right now in 2025, because too many people are seeing the costs go up beyond what they can afford, and they have to unload these houses. This is a trend we're going to continue to see happening for the foreseeable future. It's not like any of these costs are going to go down. You know, inflation is still a major problem. So none of this stuff is going to go down. It's just going to go up. The only thing that's going to go down, and it's already going down, are the price of houses, which is ultimately going to be the key to making housing more affordable. Something else we can take a look at that gives some clues into who's buying houses today also kind of reinforces the idea that I've been talking about on this channel, that really just the wealthy are buying homes right now in 2025 and going into 2026. Because when you look at the down payments and how much the down payments have increased, this shows you that only people who really have money are buying. According to Realtor.com, the typical down payment in the third quarter of 2025 was $30,400, which is about $500 higher than it was in Q2, and roughly unchanged from just 1 year ago, which means this trend has been going on for a while now. And the average down payment is about 14.4% of the purchase price. Okay, why does that mean only rich people are buying, Michael? Well, I will tell you. Before the pandemic, in the third quarter of 2019, the typical down payment was $13,900. And so today, it is 118% higher than it was just 6 years ago. So we know most people are not making 118% more money than they were 6 years ago. So what does that tell you? Only people who are very well off financially are the ones who are buying homes. And let's face it, if you're not well off financially right now, you can't even buy, because you won't be able to qualify to purchase the house. It's that simple. And so obviously part of the story here is the fact that home prices have shot up over the past 6 years as well. But it's not the full story, guys, because the percentage that people are putting down has also gone up to about 14 to 15% of the purchase price of the home. And if you have an extra 20 or 30 grand laying around to pay for that higher down payment, well, you must be doing pretty good, because a lot of people can barely afford a small emergency right now. As low as $400, definitely $1,000 or more emergency. A lot of people are going to have to dip into savings or dip into a credit card, use some other form of debt to make it even happen. Also, another reason we know that it's mainly the wealthy buying homes is because the typical FICO score in the third quarter was 735, which is the highest level that we've seen in more than a decade, and about 20% higher than the national average. And usually the only way that you're going to have a sizable down payment and have a great FICO score is if you're somebody that earns a lot of money, has no debt, and is responsible with their bills. Because you can earn a lot of money but have a lot of debt and not be responsible, and you won't fit into this category. So it's not just earning a lot, it's also being financially responsible. Another thing to back up my claim is that in the first 7 months of 2025, the sales of homes that were priced at or above $750,000 rose 6% year over year. That's a large jump in just 1 year. And throughout the same time period, in just the last year, lower price sales declined by 3%. So people are buying more expensive homes and they're not buying the less expensive homes. And that data is also reflected in the National Association of Realtors data that we've gone over several times here on the channel, that breaks down the demographic of the houses that are being sold in the United States today are over $500,000, which is completely out of the price range of almost everyone. And buyers who are buying second homes or investment properties have to put down significantly more, averaging almost 27% down of the purchase price, which is nearly twice the typical down payment for a primary residence. And those down payments have now reached, on average, $84,000 for investment properties and $110,000 for second homes. So once again, who's buying all the real estate, guys? It's pretty obvious right now who's buying and who's not. And once again, I just have to reiterate that this is why you can't pay attention to what's going on with the median home price, because when you have over 50% of the homes selling for more than $500,000, that skews the data tremendously. And you got to understand that a lot of people who own these lower price homes have no incentive to sell them right now. If they sell it, they might be able to get a decent amount of money, but they're not going to be able to afford the next place. So people have to hold on to these houses whether they want to or not. And that leads me to the very last thing, which is that more home buyers today are searching for fixer-uppers in order to be able to buy a house, because that seems to be the only way a lot of people can actually afford it in 2025. In fact, according to some new data from Realtor.com, the amount of home buyers who are looking for fixer-uppers has gone up significantly compared to 4 years ago. The keyword searches for the word fixer-upper have more than tripled since 2021. And even those listings are becoming harder to find because, like I just said, people who own these smaller homes that need a lot of work aren't really selling them because it's the only type of housing that they can afford. They can't afford to move into another house right now. So fixer-uppers now draw 52% more page views per property than similarly aged affordable listings. Think about that for a minute. And it's a desirable property for a few different reasons. One, it's usually the cheapest. First-time home buyers are looking for fixer-uppers because they're smaller, older homes that need a sizable amount of work. And home flippers and investors are interested in this because that's where the highest amount of profit can be had. So the median fixer-upper was priced at only $200,000 as of July of 2025, which is less than half of the median home price of $436,000. So that is a huge savings if you can find one, which is why so many people are looking for them right now. But just keep in mind, guys, it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Like, if you find a fixer-upper, you are getting yourself into a world of problems, and you have to understand that from the get-go. You might think you're getting a deal because you're buying a house for half of what houses in the area are going for, but there's a reason the house costs half, okay? It's going to cost you more money than you think to fix it up. It's going to take longer than you think, and it's going to be a lot more stressful and more difficult than you imagine. That's how all of these projects go. Unless you're a pro and you've done it hundreds of times before and you have a well-oiled team that can easily turn the house around for you, it is going to be nothing but an uphill battle. And I'm not saying this to discourage people from finding a fixer-upper and doing it themselves, because if you are handy, you can save a lot of money doing this. But just know that you're getting yourself into nothing but trouble. It's going to be a lot of headaches, and unless you enjoy doing that kind of thing, it's not for everybody. But if you are looking for a fixer-upper, they're typically more plentiful in areas where homes are older and there's less new construction. Places like Syracuse, New York, Toledo, Ohio, and New Orleans, Louisiana saw the highest share of fixer-uppers, while Memphis, Tennessee, Boise, Idaho, and Las Vegas saw the lowest amount of fixer-uppers. And a fixer-upper is essentially defined by a single-family home that is at least 20 years old, listed at a price per square foot below the median for that zip code, and is marketed as needing repairs or TLC. That's essentially a fixer-upper. Also, another thing you have to keep in mind is if you want to buy a fixer-upper, it can be a lot more difficult to close on a property like that due to inspection problems, and maybe nobody will finance the property, for example, until there's a new roof on it. So guess what? You're gonna have to have that done before having the house purchased. So have fun working that out with the seller. You can see right behind me, they got a fixer-upper going on. Look at the crew of people that it takes to fix up these houses. They got like 10 guys there working on this house right now. In fact, inspections and repair issues are the top reason that home sales fall through when people are looking at buying a fixer-upper. And really, that's the number one reason all home sales are falling through right now, according to the most recent Redfin data. But that goes back to things being too good to be true, guys. When you see a house listed for far below the market value in the area, there is a reason for that. There are liens attached to the property. There are unresolved permitting issues. There are major expensive repairs that can require, might even make more sense to demolish the entire house and start from scratch. These repair costs can be so high. So you got to understand what you're getting yourself into if you're going to go for one of these fixer-upper properties. And that's why, kind of summarizing everything that I talked about with how expensive it is to own one of these condos in Miami, to the down payments and how much those have ballooned, the mortgage payments ballooning, owning a house is not the American dream anymore, guys. It really isn't. The goal should be freedom above all else. Financial freedom is going to allow you to live whatever kind of lifestyle that you want. And if homeownership is a part of that one day, fine, that's great. But it doesn't have to be, especially when you look at the cost of all of these properties. It's not worth it in most cases. It's going to be a hindrance on building wealth, not a contributor. Home values have hit their maximum peak right now, and that's why they're coming down in so many areas across the country, because affordability is at the lowest level it's been in decades, and the only way these homes are going to get sold is if the prices come down. So building wealth with a house right now is not the name of the game. Building wealth in general should be the name of the game, which means you're going to have to look at alternative choices. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you do still want to buy a house or you need to sell one, make sure to use my link down in the description below. I can get you set up with a real estate agent in all 50 states across the country. It's 100% free for you to use, and it helps the channel. So if you use it, I appreciate it. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.